Good day. My name is Jaime Rivera. Presently, I live in Portage Park here in Chicago. However, growing up in my early years and during my teen years, I lived in two distinct communities. One was the near west side, known as Little Italy, and then eventually moved to Humboldt Park on the north side of Chicago. Growing up, two of the stories that resonated with me the most were one, the movie musical The West Side Story, and number two, the real life story of the Humboldt Park Division Street riots of 1966. You see, up until then, I was struggling with a severe identity crisis. I had no idea of who I was as a Puerto Rican born and raised here in the United States. I had no idea how I was going to fit into the Little Italy community that I was living in, any more than I had an idea of how I was going to fit into the overall nation. I had no sense of my past, no sense of my present, and certainly had no sense of my future. And that was real scary. My parents were Puerto Rican Americans born and raised on the island who immigrated here in the late 1940s in what is known to us as the diaspora. Neither one of them had much of an education. But, like the other immigrants that came here before them, they made up for it with their innate ingenuity and their willingness and drive to succeed here in America. I think our story was perfectly captured in that movie musical, The West Side Story. That is, the diverse ethnic turfs, the gangs, the police suspicion and indifference, and the boy meets girl from across the tracks romance story. That pretty much summed up my experience in Little Italy on the near west side growing up. The Puerto Rican community was just beginning to emerge, but it was fragmented and dispersed in various communities across the city, including the near west side. Humboldt Park emerged as the nucleus Puerto Rican community in the late 50s and 60s. Unfortunately, racism, prejudice, and discrimination followed us wherever we went. I had no clue of what my real identity was living here on the near west side. I was like what a prominent Puerto Rican sociologist had described, and that was, Puerto Ricans are like the plight of the bat. They are neither bird nor rodent, belonging to neither family, and so therefore they are often confused. That was me in a nutshell at the time. But then came the Division Street riots of 1966. I was listening to news reports on my transistor radio with some of my friends. That reality awoke in me a sense of self, an emerging identity of a beleaguered and surrendered culture and heritage. Questions began to emerge. Who are we? Where did we come from? Why are we here? And where are we going? So, in a sense, I say I was really born in that riot of 1966. Public education did little or next to nothing to help me develop a healthy sense of identity. Often we were depicted in books in the negative. Movies weren't much of a help either. The Division Street riots did what my public education and movies failed to do. Raise my consciousness and set me on my course to recapturing my surrendered culture and heritage. Humboldt Park became my cultural and heritage home over time. There were only storefront institutions or church gatherings during those times, and families shared their food, music, and stories. I became fused with my people and began to share our cultural heritage and history. I learned about the victories as well as the defeats, about our heroes as well as our villains, our food, our music, folklore, literature, politics, religion, science, sports, and much more. Humboldt Park helped me appreciate the diversity of my past, having then and now interfaced with many racial and ethnic groups, for better or for worse. All of them gave me an overall sense of purpose and meaning in knowing that we all belonged to the human family. In telling my story, if it resonates and could help anyone struggling with an identity issue, then that makes me feel purposeful and satisfied. Knowing how community, diversity, and its cultural institutions can play an instructive and positive role in the formation of one's identity. In order to become a better human being and to make us all a resilient collective and a stronger community, and thus nation. That's my story.